Hey guys, so today we're going to explore what might seem like a really simple idea of spending a lot less money than you're making. But believe it or not, this is one of the most challenging things for most adults in the modern day. In the old world, you made some money, and from that money, you spent a bit of money for your livelihood, and the rest of the money that's left over, you might put aside for the future. But today, we make money and can't seem to keep track of how much we are spending, to the extent that most people spend a lot more money than they're making. This has meant that most people are stuck in this perpetual cycle of making money, spending and paying debts, making money, spending and paying debts. And they remain in that stage for most of their financial lives. So today we're going to explore exactly why this happens. Why is it that most adults just cannot spend within their means? Okay, so let's unpack that. My name is Ken of the Humble Penny and Financial Joy Academy. What we do on this channel is to give you the tips, the insights, the practical hacks to help you work towards a dream life of financial independence and money joy. So let's dive in and really understand what exactly makes it so difficult for most people to spend less than they are earning. So the first reason why most people spend a lot more money than they're making is down to something known as the money blueprint. So your money blueprint is the view of money that you take on from your parents growing up. Spend some time thinking about these questions. Did you grow up in a household where your parents were more savers than they were spenders? Did they borrow money a lot more than they were actually saving money? If you find that you grew up in a household where your parents were actually spending a lot more than they were making, you'll probably find that it's more likely to be the same in your life situation. If you grew up in a household where your parents saved a lot more money and invested money, it's highly likely that you would be somebody who would also be saving money and investing money. So that exercise of just thinking about some of the memories about money you have growing up should reveal to you what your money blueprint is. And if it reveals that your money blueprint is working against you, then it's time to really start to do something about it. Because you might think that today, spending a lot more than you're making is just something you've found yourself in because of your life circumstances, but it's highly likely that it's tied to perhaps your upbringing and the way your parents treated money around you growing up. The second reason is something I refer to as a debt hangover. So this is where one relies on debt so much that debt starts to essentially finance their lifestyles. Most people fall into this bracket exactly because a lot of us have access to easy credit cards, overdrafts, and we think that of course we can afford it. Of course we'll be able to pay back that money. But it becomes a cycle and we just can't wean ourselves off the short-term debt. Many of us have 1, 2, 3, 4 credit cards easy. And before you know it, you can't seem to pay one back and you start to live on another one and you can't seem to pay that one back and you find yourself on a third one. And this is where the trouble begins because you just cannot even speak to people about it. You start to feel shame and life starts to completely spiral out of control. This is a huge debt hangover that a lot of people are involved in today, driven mainly by the fact that most people are living above their means. This has the double whammy of not only does one not have the ability to repay their debts potentially, but it also starts to completely destroy their credit profiles because you start to see potentially inability for people to repay reflected on their credit profiles, which makes the matter a lot worse. So debt is something that I cannot stress enough is something that puts most of us in bondage, driven mainly by the fact that we just want to live that life that everybody else is living. Getting free of debt is something that's achievable, but it really begins with a choice that you need to free yourself from debt. Okay, that choice is so hard to make, but it's one that you must make and start to take the steps day by day. Those steps could include simply cutting up your credit cards, almost just put a line in the sand for making the matter worse. and almost cutting clear access to overdraft facilities, and then taking some advice. Do not feel in shame about that. Speak to people about it. Speak to people you trust in your own life, or speak to debt charities, for example. The third reason is because of following other people, essentially following the Joneses, okay? This can be as subtle as just liking people's posts on Instagram and liking their posts on social media generally. And before you know it, you want that same thing that other people want, okay? In this so connected world we live in today, this is so easy to make. This mistake is so easy to make, and it just ends up compounding in our lives because all of a sudden we want the same type of car that somebody wants, we want the same type of lifestyle they've got, we want to go on the same type of holidays they've got, we want our kids to go to the same type of private schools they're going to, and before you know it, life spirals out of control. Now here's my advice on this very point. Ignore absolutely everybody. This is so difficult to do, but so important. Putting in place certain controls can help you. Things such as looking at social media maybe only twice a day at the most, okay? At the most. Say you might look at it at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and then look at it at 6 p.m. at night, and that's it. That little step alone can help start to wean you away from just wanting to live that life that other people live. A big part of really stopping this idea of following other people comes down to really understanding yourself a lot more. What's important to you and what do you want out of life? This is a big step in working towards growing in your own self-awareness, okay? This takes time, but it's absolutely critical in order for you to stop following the Joneses. I've done a really detailed post about why following the Joneses could potentially destroy your life and how you can get out of it. I'm going to put a link to it below or above. Feel free to check it out for yourself and start to take the steps today. Number 4 is the lack of a budget in your life. Now, budgeting to you and I intuitively sounds like a good idea, but most people do not practically use budgets in their own lives. For the avoidance of doubt, a budget is simply a plan for how you're going to distribute your income into your expenses, into your savings and investments, okay? It's a plan of how you're going to do that. And most people simply do their own budgeting in their own hands and don't understand that a budget simply exists as a control to help you live within your means. If you set yourself a goal around your various expense categories and you actually give the budget the respect that it deserves by sticking to it, you will find that you will gradually start to work towards a life of living within your means and spending a lot less than you earn, okay? I'm going to put a link below to a post I've done called How to Create a Budget That Works For You. Feel free to check it out because in that post it gives you resources on how you can create a budget for yourself. We've also created a product called the Budget for Life. So if you're somebody who hates Excel and really just wants to use a budget that's been pre-made for somebody that's super easy to use, feel free to check out in the links below or above the Budget for Life. A simple, super simple Excel budget that we use in our own lives, created for people who just don't like Excel, but who really want a robust budget that works for them. Number 5 is going to be super controversial, but it's due to people being in the wrong partnerships. Now, what am I talking about here? If you've got yourself a girlfriend, boyfriend, a partner, whoever you've got in your own life at the moment, the choice of who you decide to marry will play a critical role on whether you continue to live a life within your means or not, right? So here's where I'm going to say it's something that's super controversial, okay? If you have not married somebody, think very wisely about whether the partner you've got at the moment is somebody you want to live your life with in the future, okay? Spend some time analyzing and looking at how they're currently spending money, because if you marry the wrong person or get into a long-term relationship with the wrong person and start to buy homes and buy assets and buy things, but they are people who habitually live above their means, then you are in effect marrying or going into a relationship with essentially a bit of a time bomb, because what will happen over time is that will start to weighing on your relationship. So the point here is essentially to make sure that you are going into partnership with the right person. Somebody who's gotten the help that they might need in order for your relationship to be a happy one. So I'll give you an example. Before I got married to my wife, we took marriage preparation classes, which made us really ask the hard questions in our own relationships relating to money. Okay, so really spend some time understanding who you're with as your long-term partner and making sure that you are both on the same page. By that I mean there's constant communication, you both have complete transparency in your relationship, and you both know where your money is coming from and where that money is going. Because if that's very clear to two people, then you will find yourselves giving each other the accountability that you need to live within your means. Number 6 is due to the lack of self-awareness. Now, you might be aware of this, but self-awareness is an integral part of emotional intelligence. And it really starts to become something that is a part of your life if you are somebody who asks themselves the hard questions, okay? So like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where am I spending money? And why on earth am I spending money on these things? Why am I buying things and acquiring and filling my house with things from catalogs? Why am I spending from a credit card? Why am I always in my overdrafts? Now, these are questions that most people put their head in the sands about, okay? People don't want to answer these hard questions because these questions challenge them. But somebody who's high on self-awareness will have an answer to these questions. And if you have an answer to these questions, they will start to help you crawl out of your situation. So if you're in a relationship, for example, I'd highly recommend starting this process by just having discussions with your partner, okay? Simple questions like I've just mentioned earlier. You know, for example, why are we always spending on our credit card? Why do we not just pay for things on our debit card? Answer to that alone would be so revealing, because it could just be as simple as it's just because it's convenient, when in actual fact, it could be the exact reason why you've been spending a lot more than you're making. But it begins with having that conversation. Number 7 is due to complete and utter ignorance. Now, have you ever been to the shopping mall and seen those massive signs that say things like 75% sale or 75% off? Let me ask you a question. When you see a sign like that, what exactly do you do? Do you walk into the shop or do you walk away? I personally run a mile from those signs, because those signs are clear, welcoming signs to come and spend money and buy things that you potentially have absolutely no need for. I'll give you an example of the type of ignorance that really gets to me. I heard somebody once say that they had a really nice BMW and they parked that BMW on their driveway, okay? And that BMW got stolen overnight, which should indicate to you that, perhaps this car is not something I should be driving. So this guy, the insurance company paid him off and he got a money back for his BMW. But guess what he then does? He goes away and buys an even flashier BMW and parks it on the same driveway. Now think about that for a minute. This is the sort of ignorance that I'm talking about. People just having this complete disconnect from cause and effect. And this is what leads many people to spending a lot more money than they are earning. Number 8 is because many people are living for today. Now, I'm going to read you one of my favorite proverbs. Once in a while, I like reading these things because they give me a great deal of insight into how we should be thinking about life. And here's one. The ants are not a strong people, yet they prepare their food in the summer. Now, what this is saying is that the ant has a wisdom for contemplation and preparation. I think this is exactly how we should be thinking about our own lives as well. We should not just live in the current season and that's all we think about. If you're in the winter, you should be expecting that the summer will be coming up, because we know we've got 4 seasons, okay? Life has exactly the same principles at play. So if you're somebody who is currently living for today, then the chances are you'll be maxing out your income and potentially spending a lot more than you are making. Number 9 is because of human liabilities. Now, this is a really controversial point. Now, human liabilities are people who are always asking you for money all the time. A lot of the time, they might be lazy, not working because they just don't want to do any work, but they somehow rely on you for their livelihoods and always asking you for money. These might be people living in other countries. They might just be people living in your existing country, but they're always on your case on social media, always contacting you for some money. Now, here's why this is a challenge, okay? Lots of people just don't know how to say, no, I'm not giving you any more money, because they are just so used to saying yes all the time. And here's where it gets tricky. A lot of people who say yes don't actually have the money to give. A lot of them do it through credit cards, overdrafts, and end up being in debt themselves. Now, why on earth would you want to do that? Why would you want to be coming across as somebody who is potentially generous, but you are actually doing it out of debt in your own circumstances? So having human liabilities is something, if you've got it in your own life, you've got to absolutely draw a line in the sand and say no, because if you don't, you will potentially continue to spend a lot more than you make, or potentially live on the edge all the time. Number 10 is because of lack of happiness. Now, this is a really challenging one, and one that a lot of us can probably relate to, okay? Do you find yourself doing things like, oh, I'm gonna go on a long weekend away because I deserve it, or I'm gonna buy myself those pair of trainers or those pair of shoes because I deserve it? Okay, what you find is that a treat once in a while is not a bad thing. But if you find yourself continually buying things to make yourself feel good, then the chances are there's probably a lot more going on beneath the surface. And most of us just tuck that away by buying things to supposedly make us happy temporarily. Okay, and what's interesting about that is that a lot of us end up spending on credit and believing that we will work to pay off the credit, and we spend again, work to pay off the credit, and this remains as a cycle. A lot of people end up then spending continuously, and things just get completely out of control, coupled with the fact that they've got an underlying issue that they are completely avoiding. It might be that you've had a divorce, it might be that you've had a breakup, it might be that you've had a traumatic childhood. It could be so many different things. The key though is to seek some help, because that's really where things start to turn around, okay? Find yourself a therapist, find yourself some help, speak to somebody you trust, but really start to have a conversation around the real underlying issue. Because if that's not dealt with, things above, which relate to spending money to make yourself happy temporarily, can completely spiral out of control. And they do all the time for a lot of people. And then people start to feel shame and start to hide that aspect of their lives away from other people, okay? Although I mentioned 10 points on this very video, I'd like to throw in a bonus point, which is the lack of income. Now, a lot of people spend a lot more than they're making because they simply don't make enough money. If you're one of those people and you're so new to the idea of making extra money, and you've always considered other ways in which you can make extra money, we've got so many resources that you can check out, okay? I'm going to put a link below to 12 best side hustle ideas. I made a video on this that you can possibly check out. I've done a really detailed post called 27 legit ways you can make money online. I'll put a link to it below and above also for you to check out. Have a look below also to 85 ways to make extra money. These are all ideas that you can check out as ways for you to explore making extra money on the side. But not having enough money by far is one of the biggest reasons why people end up spending a lot more than they're making, and therefore end up going into debt in order to support their lifestyles, okay? Some of them are legitimate reasons, and some of them are just habitual things that have led people into debt, for example. So check those ideas and start to explore them today. Guys, I really hope you've enjoyed that video on 10 reasons why most people spend a lot more money than they are making. This is going to be quite challenging, but I'm going to ask you straight up, which of those 10 reasons can you identify as relating to you personally? Or which have you identified as something that related to you in the past? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've got other thoughts around why you think most people spend a lot more than they're making, please make sure you share in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Ken. What we do on this channel is to give you the tips, the insights, the hacks for you to work towards a dream life of financial independence and money joy. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe. We publish content on a Tuesday and Thursday. Make sure you hit that notifications bell at the bottom so you're notified as soon as we hit that publish button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on our next video. Bye for now.